Luck has to be on your side if you manage to be one of the few survivors of a big catastrophe.
From a man who cheated death 6 times to a man who survived on nothing but Mountain Dew, we have it all on today's top 10 list.
Starting off this countdown, we have Matt SUTER. In 2016, 9-year-old Matt SUTER was just relaxing watching TV in his grandmother's trailer. Then out of nowhere, a massive tornado hit the trailer, shredding it to bits. Matt was flung out of the trailer 400 meters into the air. He landed in a grass field, and he managed to survive. In fact, he holds the record for the longest distance a human being has ever survived being flung by a tornado. He was knocked unconscious, but besides that, he had no major injuries. Now that's a story to tell to your grandkids.
Coming in number 9, we have KARTAR. I mean, we're coming out of the gate hard with this one. This dude was insanely lucky. KARTAR was working as a car salesman in Dubai, but his entire family was in India. He would make trips back and forth from India to Dubai quite often. Well, one day when he was landing in Dubai after spending some time with his family, his plane exploded in midair and came crashing down to the earth. Now, most of the time when this happens, nobody walks away, but KARTAR was tough as nails, even though he was 62 years old and a grandfather. Luckily, the plane crashed onto the runway of the airport, so there were people there that could quickly rush out and save everyone who survived the crash. And there was going to be a little extra added luck to the fact that this crash happened at the airport. After KARTAR was walking through the airport, he decided to stop and pick up a lottery ticket. I mean, you just survived the impossible, it would be a good time to test your luck around on other things. A few days later, he found out that he won millions of dollars through that lottery ticket, and he was able to retire in a life of luxury.
In our 8th spot, we have Edith Rosenbaum. Edith Rosenbaum was aboard the Titanic when it hit an iceberg and sank on April 15, 1912. She was among the 706 individuals to survive. Rosenbaum was a stylist and journalist who was returning to the US on the Titanic after being in Paris for an assignment. On the night of the sinking, she fled her room and made her way to the lifeboats. In fact, at first she was too nervous to get in, until somebody grabbed something she was holding in her arms and tossed it into the lifeboat. She then hopped on to retrieve her item. And this item was a small musical toy pig that was given from her mother as a good luck charm. And boy, was it a good luck charm, alright. Apparently Edith was playing the musical pig in order to calm the kids on board. And it worked. Now, this isn't the only big disaster Edith survived. A year prior, her and her fiance got into a car crash. He didn't survive, but she did. She also survived from bombings during the war. She's one lucky lady. Or unlucky lady, depending on how you look at it.
Coming in at number 7, we have Paul Templar. There are very few animals that you should not be able to survive an attack from, and let me tell you, a hippo is one of them. Paul Templar would come as close as possible to being killed by a hippo as anyone ever has without actually dying. Paul was working as a safari guide one day, and while he was out on the water leading a group in some kayaks, his kayak was flipped over, and before he knew it, he was underwater. But it was very strange because he could feel that his legs were wet, but his torso was dry, and everything was dark, and there was a horrible smell surrounding him. Turns out that he was headfirst in a hippo's mouth. Eventually he was able to escape the jaws of the beast, but it attacked him again and took him underwater. 2 more times Paul was thrown around in the water by the massive creature. It ripped a hole in him so deep you could see his internal organs, and one of his arms was crushed to pieces, but he was alive. He was able to make it to the hospital, but it took 8 hours without painkillers.
In our 6th spot, we have Annette HERFKENS. Annette HERFKENS was only 31 years old when she was involved in a terrible plane crash. Out of everyone on board, she was the only survivor. But not only did she survive the crash, she also managed to survive living 8 days alone in the Vietnamese jungle. After the crash, she suffered from a fractured hip, collapsed lung, and dislocated jaw. But despite her injuries, she managed to survive by only drinking rainwater and meditating to pass time. When officers found her, they were incredibly shocked. They didn't think anyone would be able to survive that bad of a plane crash.
Coming in at number 5, we have Jason Seed. I don't know how I haven't heard of this story before, because it is literally the best opportunity for a marketing campaign that I have ever heard of in my life. Back in 2010, Jason Seed was driving through the mountains in Indiana and it was wintertime. He took a wrong turn and ended up trapped in the snow. Not a big deal, he should be able to get out, right? Wrong! Him and his dog were now trapped in his car and Jason thought the best course of action would be to wait for someone to come find them, which isn't a bad idea. You don't want to venture out into the snow and freeze to death. So the two of them waited there for 3 days and all they had to survive on was water and Mountain Dew. That's right, Mountain Dew kept this guy alive for 3 days, and on the 3rd day he had enough energy to walk out for 7 miles and find help. All thanks to the Dew. How did Mountain Dew not run this as one of their biggest campaigns ever? Do you want to survive the impossible? You better get a
Mountain Dew. Soda times Dew.
Are you in a life and death scenario with no hope left? Well, you better get a
Mountain Dew. Soda times Dew.
Are you looking death in the face and it seems like any breath could be your last? Well, you should have had a
Mountain Dew. Soda times Dew.
In our 4th spot, we have SUTOMU Yamaguchi.
This man managed to survive 2 huge nuclear explosions. His story is incredible. So on August 6, 1945, Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima for a business trip when the bomb was released. He claims he saw a big flash in the sky as it exploded. He was blown back, had severe burns, ruptured eardrums, and was temporarily blind. After this incident, he returned home to get treated. He lived in Nagasaki, where the 2nd atomic bomb was released. Again, he witnessed another atomic bomb and survived. In fact, he's the only survivor of both bombings. Of course, over time he suffered from the radiation he was exposed to, but imagine that, surviving not 1, but 2 atomic bombs. And those things are really deadly.
Coming in at number 3, we have Danny Balch. Surviving a natural disaster is a surefire way to get yourself plastered on this list. So Danny Balch was out with 3 friends camping at the base of Mount St. Helens and they heard a massive explosion. It was the volcano erupting. A blast of heat smashed down on them and Danny was knocked unconscious. The 4 of them were separated at the time and when Danny came to, the skin on his hand was melted off. He walked around for a bit to try and find his friends and eventually he came across his buddy Thomas, who was trapped under some broken trees and had a broken hip. He dug him out and then they ran into their 2 other friends. The 4 of them found a cabin where they could stay safe and one of them went out for help. Eventually a rescue helicopter found them and the 4 were saved and survived one of the most terrifying things that could happen to a person.
In our 2nd spot, we have FRANE SELAK. FRANE SELAK is a Croatian music teacher that is considered both the luckiest and unluckiest man alive. This guy has been in a number of disasters and has managed to survive every single one of them. It first started in 1962 when he was on a train. It got derailed and landed in a river. He managed to survive whereas 17 others drowned. Then the following year, during his first and only plane ride, FRANE was chilling when the plane door malfunctioned and opened, sucking him right out. But he landed safely in a haystack. The plane, on the other hand, crashed and 19 passengers passed away. Then in 1966, he was on a bus that skidded off the road and into a river. Again, he managed to survive, whereas others drowned. We're not done with him yet. In 1970, his car caught on fire while driving, and he escaped just before it blew up. 3 years later, the same thing basically happened again and he escaped. This time he only had a little bit of burnt hair. Then in 1995 he was hit by a bus but had no big injuries, and in 1996 he got in a head-on crash with a truck on a mountain. This resulted in him being ejected completely from his car, but he managed to grab onto a tree while his car fell 300 feet down. Isn't that unbelievable? He has cheated death so many times. Then in 2003 he purchased a lottery ticket and he won just over $1 million.
Coming at the number 1 spot, we have NACHIRIN. Alright, let's head way back in time for this one. For this one, we gotta go back to the year 1269 and follow the story of a Buddhist monk named NACHIRIN. He was living in Japan at the time of the Mongolian invasion. This was one of the most devastating disasters to happen to Japan, and it was especially bad for anyone who was Buddhist. The Mongolians would intentionally seek out and murder anyone who followed the Buddhist faith. They would round them up and perform mass executions. NACHIRIN was set to be executed. He had his head on the chopping block, and his Mongolian executioner raised his blade to swing it down and slice his head off. In that moment, a beam of light came down from the moon and cast it straight into the executioner's eye, and he missed his slice. Nachirin bolted up and ran into the darkness and was able to get away to safety. That is one of the luckiest things that could ever happen to you.
And that's all for today's video. If you liked this video and want to see more, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and of course subscribe to our channel. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan.
And I've been your host, Jade Arena.
I'll see you when I see ya.
Bye. Now, most of the time when this happens, nobody walks away, but Now, most of the time when this happens, nobody walks away, but I did something that involves money and being like, oh, I used Smog, the dragon coming out of gold.
Oh, I was gonna say you should have done the one where it's like, I am the cash man.
Oh, yeah.
I give you
money.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I love him.
That's a filthy story about that guy.
Really?
Okay, tell us after. I'm so, okay. Anyway, from a hippo.
From a hippo. Hippos are mean, man.
Well, hungry hippos.
Yeah, that's where they came.
That's why I did that. Wait, what? Why do I have 6?
6 in our 8th spot.
That was number 7.
Oh, you know why? It's because I rearranged them. Okay, I spooked myself. Whew, thought I was missing a point. All right. After the crash, she suffered. Wow. After the crash, she suffered. That's like the Sally Shells, she shells by the seashore. Oh no. SUTOMU? SUTOMU Yamaguchi.
Japanese is like exactly how it's spelled.
SUTOMU. Okay.
You got it.
Okay,
Oh,
sorry. In our 4th spot, we have SUTOMU Yamaguchi. Gucci. Hold on. In our 4th spot, we have SUTOMU. In our 4th spot, we have In our 4th spot, we have SUTOMU Mew. Can you say the name for me?
Yeah. In our 4th spot, we have SUTOMU Yamaguchi.
Thank you.